Have you ever walked through a forest and felt like you were being watched? Not in a scary way, but in a quiet, ancient, knowing way. What if I told you there are people who don't just feel it, but they can hear it? They can listen to the silent language of the trees. This is the story of Ilara, a man who unlocked a secret world hidden in plain sight, a world that whispers in the rustling of leaves and groans in the creaking of wood. His journey didn't start with a magical quest or a lightning strike. It began with something we all have, a moment of absolute, overwhelming silence. Ilara was a city dweller, a man whose life was a soundtrack of sirens, traffic, and the constant hum of technology. He was successful, but his soul was deafened by the noise. One day, on a doctor's recommendation to unplug, he drove until the city was a distant memory and found himself at the edge of a sprawling, old-growth forest. For the first hour, it was maddening. The silence was so loud it hurt his ears. He was fidgety, anxious, reaching for a phone that had no signal. He sat against the trunk of a giant oak, its bark rough against his back, and just tried to breathe. He closed his eyes, expecting nothing. But then, slowly, something else began to filter through. It wasn't a sound his ears could process at first. It was a feeling, a vibration that traveled up his spine from the roots of the great oak. He started coming back. Every weekend he'd return to the same spot, under the same oak tree. He learned to quiet his own internal monologue, the endless to-do lists and worries. It was like tuning an old radio, turning the dial past the static until a faint signal emerged. The first word he heard wasn't a word at all. It was a deep, slow, rhythmic pulse from the oak tree, the steady, unhurried drawing of water from the earth. It was the tree's heartbeat. He became obsessed. He started to recognize different voices. The slender, graceful birches whispered with a high-pitched rustle, their leaves chattering about the direction of the wind and the warmth of the sun. The stoic, ancient pines hummed a low, resonant note, a song of resilience, of winters endured and storms weathered. They didn't speak in human language, of course. Theirs was a language of sensation, of shared experience. Ilara learned that the trees were all connected. He could feel the network of roots beneath the soil, a subterranean internet where they shared nutrients, sent warnings about pests, and even supported their weaker neighbors. He once sat with a sapling struggling in the shade of its parents and could feel the flow of sugars being sent to it through the root system, a lifeline from its family. It was a community, a slow-motion society operating on a timescale far beyond our own. Through the trees, he learned the history of the land. The deep scars in the bark of an old cedar told a story of a forest fire from a century ago. The way a grove of aspens grew in a perfect circle spoke of a single, ancient parent tree whose roots had birthed an entire generation. He could feel their collective memory. They remembered the deer that sheltered under their branches, the birds that nested in their crowns, and even the humans who had passed by, leaving faint echoes of their own joys and sorrows. But the trees also spoke of pain. Ilara began to feel the ache of a dying elm, its life force slowly draining away from a blight. He felt the thirst of a forest during a long drought, a collective, parched cry that was almost unbearable. He could feel the sharp, jarring shock when a chainsaw bit into a trunk, a scream of vibration that rippled through the entire forest network. The trees didn't feel anger, but a profound, deep sadness, a confusion at the severance. This knowledge changed him. He couldn't go back to his old life. He sold his business, bought a small cabin bordering the forest, and dedicated his life to being its guardian. People in the nearby town thought he was eccentric, the man who talks to trees. But when a developer planned to clear a section of the forest for a new housing project, Ilara knew he had to act. He didn't protest with signs. He didn't shout. He invited the head of the development company for a walk. He took the man to his favorite spot under the giant oak. He didn't preach or lecture. He simply asked him to sit, to close his eyes, and to listen. To listen past the birdsong, past the wind. To listen to the quiet, powerful life thrumming all around them. The man was skeptical, impatient, but Ilara waited. After a long, quiet hour, the developer opened his eyes, a look of bewilderment on his face. I think I felt it, he whispered. The whole ground. It feels alive. The project was redesigned. The houses were built, but they were built around the oldest trees, preserving the core of the forest. Ilara taught others how to listen. Not everyone could hear the intricate conversations he did, but they could all learn to feel the connection, to sense the life force. They learned to see the forest not as a resource to be harvested, but as a community to be respected. Ilara's story isn't about magic. It's about attention. It's about understanding that communication takes countless forms, and that the most profound messages are often the quietest. The trees have been speaking for millennia. They speak of patience, of resilience, of connection, and of the slow, steady, beautiful rhythm of life itself. We've just forgotten how to listen. So next time you're near a tree, maybe lean against it, close your eyes, and just be silent. You never know what you might hear. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more stories that explore the hidden wonders of our world. We'll see you in the next one.